Sakura Angels, like most romance visual novels, is simply a game that lets you be the protagonist of your typical ecchi heron school romance anime. In the game, you take control of Kenta, who is pretty much the stereotypical heron protagonist. Like, he doesn't participate in any clubs, his parents are rarely around the house, so he has the house to himself for the most part for long periods of time to allow for ecchi shenanigans to occur, obviously. And he has no friends to be also relatable to the heroine audience. Uh, so fucking stupid, such a normie fucking take. Take this out the video. Anyway, at the beginning of the story, Kenta is attacked by a monster, and just as it looks like the monster is about to end his sad existence, he is saved by two scantily clad magical girls, Sayaka and Hikari, who explain to him that they've been defending him from the shadows from these monsters called Shadows. Anyway, not very creative names, but the point is that this wasn't supposed to happen. The mission they were given was to protect him without being seen, but the monsters that are after him have become so bold and so numerous that even with them standing guard, one of them was able to sneak up on them and almost kill the person they were tasked to protect. And so from then on, given this change in like circumstances, they will have to make some changes to their original plans. What does that exactly entail? Well, you probably guessed it, the typical like high school anime shenanigans with then coming into his school as transfer students and then suddenly having to be like by his side all the time and making pretty much everyone jealous because why does that guy is always like surrounded by girls. You know how these things go, right? And of course, since they are meant to like stay beside him, stay by his side, given the new circumstances, of course, they accompany him to his house. Though, in a rather funny twist, while they do sneak into the house when his parents are away in order to enjoy things like a proper kitchen and a shower, which just leads to more etchy situations. Um, Generally, the protagonist is able to convince them to at least not enter his house when his parents are there and to camp outside, which even the protagonist himself attributes to magic that they were able to do that without being found out. But anyway, again, with that, the typical like heron shenanigans occur, right? With him again catching them in the bath, like by accident, causing an etchy scene to occur. The typical beach episode, a couple of interactions with them, like at school, like some of those normal high school anime heroine romance interactions. You get the point. This all occurs. You can imagine all that by yourself from your own like experiences watching anime. I'll just go over that very superficially in order for us to proceed with the more important parts of the story. Anyway, going back to those parts, one day after they start doing this, after this change in circumstances happens, they are suddenly attacked not just by a normal monster, but by Yuzuki, a girl with similar powers to Sayaka and Hikari, though notably different in a lot of ways as we'll tackle later. And essentially, the encounters with her amount to the typical anime villain stuff. First, she is this intimidating force of nature that force our heroes to flee, but then they get stronger and they are able to actually fight against her, forcing her to make a retreat having to even summon monsters to distract our heroes. Like it's that typical like stuff. Just from my brief description, I think you can imagine what that entails, right? But one thing that's interesting is that since the girls actually were caught by surprise by the monsters, and since they were already like very tired from fighting Yuzuki, right? From having to improve so much and win by the skin of their teeth, like the second encounter with her, these monsters, which would usually not pose too much of a problem, suddenly are able to pin them down and put them in a bit of a pinch, forcing the protagonist to actually have to go and save them using the swords that Hikari normally does, which she dropped when she ended up being surprise attacked by. Well, you can look at the screen, right? I don't need to describe what's happening. But anyway, the protagonist, even with such a powerful sword, is not exactly proficient, and so his attempts to help don't look particularly heroic, no matter who you decide to like help first, since this is one of the game's choices. Another thing we'll talk about later. But still, he is able to at least distract the monsters for a good enough while for the girls to get control of the situation again. After the second encounter, the protagonist sees Yuzuki at their school and wanting to like get answers out of her as to what exactly is happening, why is she attacking them, etc. He follows her to the roof even though it's raining. And there he confronts her about why she's doing all this, etc. And she reveals that she is working for the main villain that is trying to like assassinate him, essentially because she is lonely. She was never able to make a lot of friends, and the villain promised that if she helped her, she would make her a queen or someone with power, and that she would be adored forever under when the world was ruled by her, by this villainess, this entity that is trying to assassinate the protagonist. Which is why she even has powers in the first place, by the way. Because it is explained that while Sayaka and Hikari are actual magical girls that actually had to train for their powers, Yuzuki instead is simply the vessel for this main villain. She is just getting power for being from being connected with her, which is why she has so much power despite not having like as much training as our heroes, and why her power is of a different nature, is more unnatural. It's of a different kind than that of our heroes. You get the point. And yeah, you don't need to tell me that that's a dumb reason. Oh, why are you trying to kill me? Oh, I wanted friends. Just talk to me, dude. I also have no friends. Like we could have been like such a cute couple together instead of me having to go with these broads. I'm joking. I like both Sayaka and Hikari, but the point that I'm trying to make is that Yuzuki is super dumb. Like, oh yes, I want friends, so let me ally myself with this literal being of pure evil that promises me that she will totally not stab me in the back once she's done using me for her own means. I swear to Christ. It's explained that the manipulation has a degree of magic injected into it, that she is kind of driven insane when she uses the main villain's powers, but still, this is so dumb, man. But anyway, as you probably noticed, the girls try to keep Kenta, the protagonist, as much in the dark about what's happening as possible, since it is explained that the magical association they're working for is trying to keep this as much of a secret and solve this as quietly as they can. But given the circumstances, like the rise of Yuzuki to power at all and the progressively like bigger number of monsters and like the progressively like, bigger power that they're possessing in essence, that they can't keep all this under wraps anymore, which leads to the game's obligatory exposition dump. In short, the protagonist Kenta is a descendant of the mage that once sealed this main villain. It's explained that this main villain was a powerful witch that threatened to destroy the world, and that the protagonist's ancestor was one of the only people that was willing to rise up to stop her. Unfortunately, he was not able to defeat her completely and instead had to use sealing magic to keep her locked up in perpetuity so that she would not be able to harm anyone that way. Unfortunately, with time, this barrier has been eroding. It's explained that it will never erode enough for this main villain, this great witch, to actually be able to escape. But if she gets Kenta, if she is able to kill him and extract his blood, then and only then will she be able to break free completely from the seal. And even though she can't completely escape without his blood, she can spread her influence the more the cage erodes, which is how she is able to contact Yuzuki in the first place, as well as obviously take control of the monsters and use them to her own means. So the only way for the situation to end, to for Kenta to not be persecuted by this great witch for perpetuity, is for him to ironically have to go into the belly of the beast and use his latent magical powers in order to instead strengthen the seal, cutting her off from being able to influence the outside world and thus stopping the monsters and Yuzuki from being able to go after him once and for all. And to make a long story short, they do that. They go into the cave where the witch is sealed. They have an epic battle where once again like Hikari has to confront Yuzuki and she's clearly at a disadvantage, and Sayaka has to sacrifice herself seemingly in order to like launch you in the queen's direction so you're able to do the whole sealing ritual. You have a very short period of time to train before you need to perform the seal. So for a while it looks like you failed until you finally, like at a moment of great tension, are able to succeed and seal the witch once and for all and finally end all this whole adventure. And then there's that classic scene of, oh, we know you've been trying to kill us, because obviously without the queen's influence, Yuzuki loses her powers. But of course, the heroes decide not to kill her, and they say, oh, it's totally understandable that you would do this. Instead of you having to do it, though, we will be your friends. We forgive you for trying to kill us and whatever. Which you all know it's just done because Yuzuki is hot, and it would upset players if they weren't able to like get with her, right? You only need to look at how many people unironically want to clap even characters like Gien and Siwen and even fucking Red Shoes and Nikkei to know that that's true. I swear to God. Anyway, and then the story ends with all three of you living in this beautiful harem relationship in your very cool and totally not cliche happily ever after. So dumb. Now, of course, with this being a visual novel, of course, we have different routes you can take. That choice that I said of, oh, do you want to save Sayaka or do you want to save Hikari? That occurs a lot throughout the game. You have to make various choices, some more subtly, putting you in one route or the other, and some just being very obvious about what you're going to achieve by choosing them, right? Like you can kind of tell with some of these choices, oh, this is going to give me points towards Sayaka's route. But there aren't only like two routes, as you may surmise from that. If you make an equal or at least somewhat similar amount of choices for both characters, if you alternate in your choices pretty much, you are able to get the Heron ending, where instead of just going through one specific character route and ending up with her, you can again do that thing I described earlier of getting into a Heron ending with everyone. Like no matter what, you get into a Heron ending, including Yuzuki, but the route essentially decides which character is going to be more prevalent during the ending, like which is going to talk more to the protagonist while they're prepping to finally like put an end to the witch's villainy, who gives her hand to help him up after he finally reseals her, like who has a cute little scene with him at the end, etc. And the choices also have similar effects. They don't make any like big changes. The story progresses pretty much the same no matter what you choose. You can't even fail. There isn't even like a bad ending like there is in Fate Stay Night, for example. But they at least influence like what the characters will think of you, what each character will think of you pretty much, and which of them will be more or less prevalent throughout the story, if again any at all, since you can choose the route where both of them are equally prevalent, as I said before. So it's not a like deep system that completely again changes the story, but for what it is, I feel that the changes are pretty good again for what this game is. I certainly seen games that are way more lazy about this kind of thing, with your choices barely influencing anything at all up until a certain point where they decide, oh, now this matters. So they at least did a more interesting, at least, job than some other visual novels I've seen, even if again it's not mind blowing, but I digress. And from the way I explained everything, and I wouldn't blame you at all for thinking that, you probably like think that I made this video to clown on this game, to like just point and laugh like a lot of other videos on this kind of stuff does, and to say, oh, what a horrible cliche story, right? Like who would ever enjoy this? This is for losers and whatever other normal YouTuber shit. But I actually going to throw a curveball here and actually recommend you play the game. Why? Because to be perfectly honest with you, like let's be real, this wasn't a good story. Not even close. It was super cliche, super predictable. There are tons of holes. I think you guys are probably going to notice way more than even I did. Like there's a ton of ridiculous or poorly executed like developments, etc. But it was just fun, you know? Like you can't obviously tell from a summary like this, but if you looked at the screen, you can see that the dialogue has a lot of charm. Like the people who wrote this weren't doing this just for a paycheck. Like there's a reason this game got somewhat popular, and why both past me and a lot of other people enjoyed it when it released so many years ago. It's genuinely a game made with heart. You can tell that the people involved with this was actually having fun, and through reading the dialogue in it, all its fun quirkiness and all its like unpretentious self-awareness and all its just honesty, it's difficult to not be entertained, especially because the characters, though again cliche, are very charismatic. Like, it might seem silly to you, but this was one of the games that when I had to put down to go do something else, I would legitimately, and this is with zero like irony whatsoever, right? Be excited to finish whatever it is I was doing, to go back to playing it. It was just that fun. The characters are just that likable. The writing is just that entertaining and genuine and honest. And the whole game, the whole journey through it, despite its flaws, is still just a really good time. Like, I can't, with a clear conscience, really clown on and just point and laugh and just say it's horrible. Something I genuinely enjoy so much. So yeah, that is what I'm going to leave you with today, to the surprise of quite a few of you, I'm sure. And that will be it for today. If you like this video, please do all the normal YouTube stuff. You know, like, comment, subscribe, etc. And I genuinely do hope to see you next time. If you really liked it, I'd also really appreciate if you could support me financially, either through a one-time paid comment donation or by joining my membership, where for $1 a month, you get to participate in exclusive polls in order to decide which videos I'll make next. Like, which of my plans should I focus on? Which of the content I have in mind do you want to see first? You know, that kind of thing, as well as get your name put in this fancy little screen right here. You know, just as a small gesture of appreciation, exactly for your monthly support. But of course, no matter how much you choose to give me, as well as if you choose to give me anything at all, do know that I really appreciate any cent you're willing to throw my way, as well as just the fact that you're watching this video up to this point at all. But with all that stuff out of the way, I think it's finally time to, as always, bid you guys farewell. Obscure Anime out.